Lauren and Bradley separated 22 months after the orchids wilted. I didn't hear it from her. I heard it from Emily, who heard it from a mutual acquaintance, who heard it from Lauren's hairdresser. Small towns have a faster information transfer rate than fiber optic cables. The details arrived in fragments. Bradley's spending had accelerated following the wedding. Leased European vehicle at $750 monthly. Weekend trips on credit. A $16,000 timepiece for appearances. Their joint credit card debt, $45,000. The dealership reduced his territory after a poor quarter. The vehicle was returned. The timepiece went to a pawn shop. Lauren relocated to our parents' house, the childhood bedroom with the lavender walls and the poster she'd purchased at a discount store when she was 17. 29 years old, sleeping in a twin bed, scrolling through the wedding photographs on her phone. My parents had invested $100,000 in my sister's future. 22 months later, that future was folded into a garment bag in a closet and filed under lessons learned. I didn't feel satisfaction. That surprised me. I had expected some sense of vindication, a private satisfaction. Instead, I felt something closer to recognition. Lauren wasn't my adversary. She was a product of the same system that had attempted to consume me. The difference was she had allowed it. The secure investment, the one my father had chosen over me, had failed. The risky wager, the carpenter and the CPA, was constructing a house on a hill. I didn't contact Lauren. I didn't send a message. I just continued building. The most effective response to people who underestimated you isn't revenge. It's a permit, a poured foundation, and 12 months of compounding returns. Our house was finished in March. I remember the exact day because Nathan carried me across the threshold and I bumped my head on the doorframe, and we laughed so hard we ended up seated on the porch steps eating cold pizza at sunset. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2,800 square feet on 5 acres. Modern farmhouse, the kind of residence that appears to have existed for generations, even though every nail is new. Reclaimed wood beams in the living room. Oak from our first project. Handmade kitchen cabinets that Nathan built over 3 weekends. Sanded until the grain gleamed like river stone. Stone fireplace Nathan laid himself from field stones we collected on the property. Wraparound porch wide enough for a table, 10 chairs, and the rocking chair his mentor gave us as a housewarming gift. Appraised value, $2.2 million. Land, $79,000. Construction cost, $420,000. Because when your husband performs 60% of the labor, the arithmetic is different. Location premium, craftsmanship premium, and 5 acres of Georgia hillside accomplished the rest. I walked through the kitchen alone one morning before Nathan was awake. Ran my hand along the countertop he'd installed. Butcher block from a reclaimed bowling alley. Every surface in this house was touched by his hands. Every number in our business was processed through mine. My parents had said Nathan didn't have a legitimate career. They were mistaken about many things. But that particular statement, that was the one I reflected on most, standing in a house that proved them incorrect without uttering a word. We hosted our first dinner that weekend. Emily, Nathan's mentor, Glenn, 2 of our subcontractors, and their spouses. 12 chairs around the table. I had designed a dining room for 12. My parents had one with a seat they hadn't reserved for me. The town population is approximately 15,000, but the circles that matter are small. Church pews, PDA meetings, the checkout line at Davis Hardware, or what remained of it. Word traveled. The Morrisons constructed a house outside town. A large one. Up on the hill past the county road. Nathan Morrison, that carpenter everyone used to call the bankruptcy kid, and his wife Rebecca. Rebecca? Wait, Henderson? Like the hardware store? Like Robert and Margaret Henderson? People began connecting the dots. Morrison Property Group was visible, hiring local contractors, sponsoring youth sports, purchasing materials from suppliers across the county. The name appeared on worksites, on signs, on sponsorship banners at the baseball fields. Meanwhile, Davis hardware resembled a slow exhalation. Inventory diminished. The shelves that once held every bolt and bracket in the region now displayed gaps, visible spaces where products used to be. My father was absent most days. A help wanted sign had been displayed in the window for 3 months. Customers began driving to the large chain store instead. At the local church, where the Henderson family had occupied the third pew for 2 decades, my mother's church friends began asking questions. "How's Rebecca doing? We heard she built that beautiful place on the hill." My mother's response was always the same: tight smile, quick subject change, redirect to the church bake sale. One neighbor, a retired schoolteacher who had known both of us since childhood, said it directly: "Margaret, you must be so proud of Rebecca. Building all that from nothing. Self-made." My mother's face tightened into something that wasn't a smile. She excused herself to the restroom and didn't return for 15 minutes. My mother had spent 32 years constructing a reputation as the perfect family matriarch. My absence was the crack that allowed the light to enter. Margaret called me on a Sunday evening, first time in over a year. The caller ID made my heart pause for half a second. The way it used to, back when I still hoped every call might begin with, "I'm sorry. People are talking," she said. Her voice was thin, controlled. The voice she used when managing a situation. "They think we abandoned you." "You didn't abandon me, Mom," I said. "You just selected someone else." Silence. "That's not fair, Rebecca. We were concerned about Nathan. We wanted what was best for you." "What was best for me was being seen, being valued, being included. You said you could only invest your hearts in one celebration." The words landed. I heard her breath catch. The sound of someone recognizing their own words reflected back with precision. "We didn't intend it like, you intended it exactly like that. And I constructed my life around that reality." She changed tactics. The pivot was smooth. She'd been managing narratives for 3 decades. "Lauren is experiencing a difficult time. Bradley left her with all that debt. She could really use her sister right now." "Lauren has her family," I said. "You made that very clear at her engagement party." The call concluded. I placed the phone on the kitchen counter, the butcher block counter Nathan had installed, and gazed out the window at the oaks. I didn't cry. Not because I was resilient, but because I'd already done my crying. Years of it. Quiet crying in my vehicle after family dinners. Silent crying in the shower after being overlooked. Controlled crying at my desk after calculating figures that proved what I already knew. There's a distinction between grieving your family and grieving the idea of one. I'd finished grieving the idea long ago. The town charity banquet was the largest social event of the year. A gala at the Civic Center supporting the local food bank and youth programs. White tablecloths, silent auction, 200 guests from every corner of the community, teachers, business owners, city council members, church deacons, and every family that had ever mattered in this town. Linda Prescott, the event organizer, called me in February. "Morrison Property Group has contributed so much to this community this year," she said. "We'd be honored to have you and Nathan as our presenting sponsors." I said yes. Not to make a statement, but because I genuinely cared about the community I had chosen to build within. Nathan and I had sponsored the Youth Baseball League, hired local contractors, partnered with a housing organization on a renovation project. This wasn't performance. It was who we were. Davis Hardware had been a fundraiser sponsor for 16 years. This year, they could barely afford the table tickets. Word reached my mother. "Rebecca and Nathan Morrison are the presenting sponsors." My mother told my father. My father stared at the floor. Lauren, who had moved back home, who was still untangling Bradley's debt, discovered it through social media. "She's going to show off," Lauren told my mother. "She's doing this to humiliate us." I learned about this later through the network of polite whispers that govern small city life. It didn't surprise me. When you've spent your life as the center of attention, everyone else's success feels like a spotlight aimed at your flaws. My family assumed my success was about them. It wasn't. But I understood why they thought so. The fundraiser was in 3 weeks. My parents, my sister, and I would occupy the same room for the first time in 3 years. I pressed my dress and didn't think about it again until the evening arrived. 2 weeks before the fundraiser, Lauren drove past our house. She was making deliveries for the store, a special order shipment for a customer beyond the county line. The route ran along the road that borders our property. I wasn't home. Nathan was in the workshop cutting trim for a client's bathroom renovation. He heard a vehicle slow down, then stop. He looked up and observed a silver sedan parked at the end of our driveway. Engine running. A woman inside gripping the steering wheel. Then her phone came to her ear and she began crying. Nathan didn't recognize her. He returned to work. He told me about it that evening and I understood. That was Lauren, I said. He paused. Your sister drove out here? She was making deliveries. The route goes past us. I imagined what she observed. The house rising from the hillside, white siding, dark shutters, a porch wrapped around 3 sides. Landscaped gardens that a client's wife had helped me plant. The workshop. The gravel driveway lined with magnolias we transplanted from a demolition site. All of it constructed with our hands and our planning. Constructed by the sister who married a mistake. Constructed by the carpenter who didn't have a legitimate career. $2.2 million of the future my father had refused to fund. Emily called me later that night. Lauren called your mother crying. She kept saying, how does she have that? How does Rebecca have a house like that? My mother didn't respond, because the answer was the kind of arithmetic even she couldn't rearrange. Rebecca has that because she's Rebecca, and you dismissed her. The fundraiser was in 14 days. All 3 of them had decided to attend. The Civic Center on a warm April evening. White tablecloths, centerpieces with magnolia, a silent auction along the east wall. 200 guests filing through the double doors. The kind of event where everyone knows everyone and the seating chart is a political document. Nathan and I arrived at 6:30. I wore a navy dress, simple, no labels. Nathan wore his one good blazer and a tie I'd purchased at the consignment shop where I found my wedding dress. He adjusted the collar every 30 seconds. My parents were already present. Table 14 near the back. My father in a suit jacket that hung looser than before. My mother wearing her church smile, the one that concealed everything. Lauren beside them in a dress I recognized from the boutique where she used to work. Employee discount. Still had the tag crease at the neck. The room noticed us the way rooms notice when the 2 halves of a known story are finally in the same space. Whispers, quick glances, the polite choreography of people selecting sides while pretending they're not. I located our table, table 3, near the stage, presenting sponsors. We sat down. Nathan squeezed my hand beneath the tablecloth. Lauren intercepted me near the refreshment table 10 minutes later. Nice of you to show up where you're not wanted, she said. Quiet enough that only I could hear. I was invited, Lauren. I was asked to sponsor. You're only here to make us look bad. I looked at my sister, 29 years old, living in our parents' house, drowning in her ex-husband's debt, wearing a dress from a job she no longer held. I'm here because I believe in this community, I said. The same way I believed in our family until our family made it clear the feeling wasn't mutual. Linda Prescott took the stage at 7:15. She thanked the volunteers, the donors, the committee members. Then she reached the sponsors. This year's presenting sponsor is a couple who embodies everything this fundraiser represents, she said, adjusting the microphone. They came to this town with nothing but a business plan and a set of hand tools. In 3 years, they've renovated 8 homes, created jobs for a dozen local workers, and built one of the most respected property companies in the region. Please join me in thanking Nathan and Rebecca Morrison of Morrison Property Group. The room rose. 200 people, teachers who had taught me in high school, business owners who had seen our signs on work sites, church members who had watched the Henderson family occupy the third pew for 20 years, standing, applauding, for the daughter they were told didn't deserve assistance. I stood, nodded, and sat back down. Nathan did the same. No speech. No wave. Just acknowledgement. Across the room, my family remained seated. My father stared at his plate, the tendons in his neck drawn tight. My mother's smile was frozen, the kind of expression that requires every muscle in your face to maintain. Lauren's eyes glistened. She wiped them with a cocktail napkin she'd been shredding. Throughout the dinner, people approached our table. Not a stream, but a steady current. "We're so glad you and Nathan are part of this community. Your renovations downtown are beautiful. My son applied for a job with your company. He said the interview was the most professional he'd ever experienced." Each compliment landed like a line item on a ledger I'd never have to present to anyone. Table 14. The Hendersons remained quiet, not because people were cruel, but because people observe who builds up and who tears down. And 200 people had been watching. My father found me during the silent auction. The crowd had dispersed through the East Wing, bidding on gift baskets and weekend getaways. I was reading the description of a framed watercolor when he appeared beside me. He smelled like aftershave and something else, the faint metallic sharpness of a man running on adrenaline and very little sleep. "You've made your point," he said. Low, controlled, the voice he used when negotiating with suppliers. "Now stop making us look bad." I didn't turn to face him. I continued reading the painting's description. "I'm not making you look like anything, Dad. I'm living my life. We gave your sister that money because she needed it more. She didn't have your skills." I turned then. Looked at him properly. He was 62 years old. His back was damaged. His store was failing. His favorite daughter's marriage had collapsed. And he was standing before the daughter he had dismissed, asking her to diminish herself so he could feel significant. "I needed it too," I said. "Maybe not the money, but the belief. The faith. The same faith you gave Lauren without hesitation. I was trying to protect you from what? From building a $2.2 million company? From hiring 12 people? From standing in this room as the presenting sponsor of the fundraiser you used to sponsor?" His mouth opened, closed. He had no script for this. For 30 years, his authority had been the final word in every conversation. Now he was standing before someone whose figures were larger, whose reputation was stronger, and whose voice was calmer. He turned and walked back to table 14. My mother observed him sit down. Lauren observed him stare at the tablecloth. The room observed everything. It happened 8 minutes later. That specific silence, the one that descends over a crowd when something private becomes public. My mother was walking toward us. Not fast. Deliberate. Her heels clicking on the civic center floor like a metronome counting down. She stopped 3 feet from our table. Close enough that I could see the mascara already beginning to bleed at the corners of her eyes. "You're punishing us." Her voice was loud enough for the tables around us to hear. Then louder. "You constructed this entire life just to throw it in our faces. You're displaying your house and your business to humiliate us." I stood up slowly. "The way you stand when you want someone to recognize that you're not afraid." "Mom, I didn't build my life to punish you. I built it because you told me I was on my own. So I went on my own. We sacrificed everything for this family." My mother's voice cracked. "I gave up my career. Your father gave up his health for that store. And you just walked away. You sacrificed for the family you chose," I said. "I wasn't part of that family. You told me that at Lauren's engagement party. You told me that when Dad said those words at the dinner table. You don't get to be angry that I listened." Lauren was behind my mother now. She had crossed the room on autopilot, drawn by the gravity of the scene. "You always had to be better than everyone," she said. "You always had to prove something." I looked at my sister. I didn't have to be better, Lauren. I just had to survive without you. The room was silent. 200 people observing a family fracture in real time. Plates untouched. Conversations abandoned. Every eye in the Civic Center focused on a mother, 2 daughters, and 30 years of buried inequality finally breaking the surface. My father didn't stand. Didn't walk over. He remained at table 14 with his hands folded, staring at the tablecloth like a man reading a verdict he already knew. My mother's voice broke. You don't know what it's like to watch your daughter walk away. You're right, I said. I don't know what it's like to watch a daughter walk away. I only know what it's like to be the daughter who had to. I sat down. Nathan took my hand. I didn't leave. Didn't storm out. Didn't deliver a final remark. I returned to my seat and my dinner and my life. The confrontation was over. Not because I had won, but because there was nothing remaining to prove. The Hendersons departed at 8:45. My mother first, walking rapidly toward the exit with her purse clutched to her chest. Lauren behind her, head lowered. My father last, moving slowly with his cane, pausing at the double doors to glance back at the room one more time before stepping into the parking lot. The gala continued. The band performed. The silent auction closed. One by one, people found their way to our table. A former neighbor, the retired teacher who had taught both Lauren and me, sat in the empty chair beside me. We always wondered why you stopped coming around, she said. Now we understand. A church deacon shook Nathan's hand. Your wife's mother told everyone Rebecca moved away for work. We didn't know the truth. A woman I barely recognized, turned out she was my 9th grade English teacher, touched my arm. I taught both you girls. I always knew you were the steady one. I regret never saying it when it counted. I thanked each of them. Meant it every time. Outside in the parking lot, my father sat alone in his truck. My mother and Lauren had already driven home. He gripped the steering wheel the way Nathan said Lauren had gripped hers 2 weeks earlier, parked in front of our house. Different driveway, same grip. He whispered something. I'll never know exactly what, but Emily's husband, who was parked 2 rows over, heard fragments through the open window. I was trying to protect her. He believed it. He would always believe it. But sitting alone in that parking lot while 200 people rose and applauded his daughter, the one he said didn't deserve assistance, my father understood for the first time that intentions don't matter when the damage is already done. He started the engine and drove home alone. The gala concluded at 10 o'clock. Nathan and I were the last sponsors to leave. We remained to assist Linda's team with stacking chairs and breaking down the auction tables. Old habits. The parking lot was mostly empty. April air, warm and thick. Cicadas tuning up in the treeline. My mother was standing near the exit. I don't know how long she'd been there. Her mascara was gone. She had cleaned up in the restroom, but her eyes remained swollen, and she stood the way people stand when they've been rehearsing something for an hour and still aren't certain they'll get the words right. Come home for dinner, she said. Sunday. We can try to repair this. We can be a family again. I looked at my mother, the woman who had erased my name from a toast, who had told me they could only invest their hearts in one celebration, who had called when the books broke but never when my birthday arrived. Who had spent 3 years telling church friends I'd moved away for work. I loved her. I would always love her. But love and access are different accounts. I am home, Mom, I said. I've been home for 3 years. You just never came to visit. Her face crumpled. I didn't know where you lived. You didn't ask. We stood there for a moment. 2 women separated by 10 feet of concrete and 3 years of choices that couldn't be undone. Then Nathan took my hand and we walked to our truck. I didn't close the door on my mother that night. I just stopped pretending it was open. The engine turned over. The headlights swept across the parking lot, catching my mother still standing near the exit, arms wrapped around herself. Nathan pulled onto the county road. Georgia crickets filled the silence. I watched the Civic Center shrink in the side mirror until it disappeared. The fallout arrived the way compound interest does, quietly at first, then all at once. Davis Hardware was listed for sale 4 weeks after the fundraiser. 23 years of hardware and my father's legacy listed with a commercial broker downtown. A regional chain purchased the location for $168,000, $82,000 less than the building's assessed value. My father signed the documents in a broker's office without ceremony. No toast. No speech about investing in the future. Just a pen, a notary, and the conclusion of a legacy that I had maintained solvent for 7 years without acknowledgement. Lauren relocated to Atlanta in June. Took a position at a retail chain, register work, $9.50 hourly. A studio apartment she shared with a roommate she met through an app. She was 29 years old, rebuilding from a credit score in the low 500s and $45,000 of debt her ex-husband had left behind like a parting gift. My mother sat alone in the third pew at church the following Sunday. My father didn't attend. His back was now severe enough to require surgery, and the drive was too long for a Sunday round trip. The church friends who had once envied the Henderson family, the stable husband, the pretty daughter, the 23-year business, didn't approach my mother after the service. Not out of cruelty, but out of the particular awkwardness that occurs when everyone knows the story and no one knows what to say. 3 years of my silence had cost my family their store, their reputation, and the narrative they had constructed around themselves. I didn't cause any of it. I just stopped preventing it. There's a distinction between revenge and withdrawal. Revenge consumes energy. Withdrawal just requires the truth. My life continued the way well-constructed things do, steady, functional, improving with time. Morrison Property Group reached 26 rental properties by fall. 9 full-time employees. Revenue on track for $1.5 million. Nathan was designing a community workshop for veterans, free classes in carpentry and home repair, funded by our company and hosted in the warehouse we'd renovated downtown. I planted a vegetable garden behind the house. Tomatoes, zucchini, basil, snap peas on a trellis Nathan welded from salvaged rebar. Mornings I sat on the porch with coffee and watched the fog lift off the hills. The oaks were taller than when we'd purchased the land. Or perhaps I was simply paying more attention. I didn't post on social media. Didn't give interviews. Didn't drive past the building that used to be Davis Hardware. It was now a fast food establishment with fluorescent signage in a parking lot where the garden section used to be. A letter arrived on a Tuesday in October. Plain white envelope, my father's handwriting. I'd recognize it anywhere after 7 years of reading his notes in the margins of vendor invoices. I opened it standing at the mailbox with the afternoon sun warm on my shoulders. I was wrong. That was all. No explanation. No context. No request. No conditions. No return address, even though I knew exactly where he lived. Just that blue ink on a folded piece of notebook paper. I read it twice, carried it inside, sat with it at the kitchen table for a long time, running my thumb along the crease. Then I placed it in the filing cabinet. Same drawer as the ledger. Same drawer as the life I had accounted for and moved past. Forgiving my father wasn't something I owed him. It was something I would give myself when I was ready. And I wasn't ready yet. Some accounts take longer to reconcile than others, and some balance sheets never fully close. The best revenge isn't success, it's indifference to the people who doubted you. The people who told me I didn't deserve assistance gave me the greatest gift they could, the certainty that everything I built, every wall, every number, every morning on this porch, was mine. Built by my hands and the hands of the man they said wasn't sufficient. $100,000 for a wedding that lasted 22 months. $250,000 in free labor that no one acknowledged. A $2.2 million home constructed with a carpenter's hands and a CPA's discipline. And a family that learned too late that the person they dismissed was the one holding everything together. If you've ever been the one they looked past, the one they said didn't deserve a seat at the table, you already understand how this feels. You know the silence after you stop trying. And you know the sound of your own life growing louder once theirs becomes quiet. Share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Leave a comment if you've ever had to build your own table because they wouldn't save you a chair. And subscribe to Quiet Justice Tales because every story here is for the ones who kept going.